Welcome back, everybody. And today we're in chapter 8, which deals with motivation. Now, as you're going to see, there are a lot of theories that deal with this concept, mainly because as we evolve in our understanding of leadership, we start to understand the importance of motivation and how important it is for leaders to be able to motivate their people. So, today, let's go ahead and get started with motivation and some of the theories that surround this important concept.
Well, welcome back, everybody. And today we're in chapter 8. We're moving right along, and chapter 8 discusses the idea and the concept of motivation, but also empowerment. So let's go ahead and begin. Now, motivation, these are the forces that are either internal or external to a person that arouse enthusiasm and persistence to pursue a certain course of action. Now, think about this. What motivates you? What is it that drives you each and every day? Let's say, for instance, you are right in the middle now of getting your degree, or maybe you're beginning. What made you desire to go and get your degree? What was your motivation for your degree? What's your motivation now for some of you who are midway through your degree, or maybe as you're ending the requirements for your degree and you're getting ready to graduate? What is your motivation? For some, it may be more career opportunities. For some, it may be ministry. For some, it may be having a better lifestyle because you can command, hopefully, more money and all of that. Whatever it may be, these are the forces that are either internal or external that makes you enthusiastic, and not only enthusiastic, but persistent to pursue a certain course of action. Now, employee motivation when it comes to work affects productivity. Now, think about this. Have you ever worked in a job, or have you been a part of a project that there was just not very much motivation going on there? It happens to all of us. And motivation will determine how much of work and quality that you will put into that job. If an employee, let's say, in the workforce is not motivated, they're not going to give you 100%. In fact, you'll be doing good just for them to do the bare minimum. That's just the way it is. And also, it's the same way in church. I have seen people in ministry who have just lost their motivation. The ministry didn't seem what it, or wasn't what it seemed to be. They thought it would be something that it wasn't, or they were looking for something different. And as a result, they lost their motivation to to keep on in that area. Now, some people are motivated, as we said a while ago, internally and externally. Some people will stay with the job or ministry just because it may pay well or it may have benefits, and that motivates them. It may not motivate them to go above and beyond, but it will at least motivate them to come to work and do what is necessary. But today, we want as much as we can glean from our workers. And that doesn't come with a lackluster type of attitude. It comes with people who are motivated to succeed and to see the organization succeed. Now, part, as you see here, of a leader's job is to channel followers' motivation toward the accomplishment of the organization's vision and goals. Now, normally they're going to be motivated to do one of several things. They can be motivated to do their own thing. They can be motivated to get out of work. And some people will spend more time getting out of work and cheating their time there than they would to just go ahead and do the work as it's their responsibility to. But it's your job as the leader to channel that energy and that motivation toward the organization's vision and goals. And that's why you need to be able to connect with your people. You know, Jesus, when you take a look at it, think about how he motivated his disciples. He didn't just tell them to do something. He showed them. He demonstrated the what he practiced. So he practiced what he preached. He was able to elicit the trust of the disciples. And if you have trust, you've got a lot going for you, folks. If they trust you and they depend on you and you are trustworthy, then that can motivate people. That's what we see with the disciples. And it works in business as well as in ministry. Now, leaders use motivation theory to satisfy followers' needs and to encourage high work performance. Now, when we're dealing with motivation, we are really looking at the realm or the world of psychology and the social sciences, maybe sociology. And there are numerous volumes of work out there that deal with motivation, just that one word. Scientific man has applied much research to just what makes a person want to do what they do. And as a result of that, we have many theories that follow from all of that research. So we want to use that research. We want to use those theories to satisfy the followers' needs, which is an important aspect, and to encourage high work performance. Now, how do we do that? Well, let's look at some of the basics of motivation from a theoretical standpoint. The first thing that we see here, the first theoretical model, is a simple model of motivation. First of all, there's a need, and this creates the desire to fulfill needs. Money, friendship, recognition, achievement. There are all types of needs that we have that need satisfying, and we begin with that need. Well, in order to fulfill that need, we have to engage in certain behaviors. And that's the next step. You have a need, and then you engage in behaviors that will hopefully glean the results that you're looking for. So the behavior will result in actions to fulfill those needs. And then the reward. What's the payoff? I know the need that I have. I want to be successful. I want to have, as we see here in the first block, I want money. So that's a common need for many people. So I need to do something that is going to result in more money. So you may have the mindset now that going to college, getting your degree, once you've earned that degree, you'll be able to command more money from the secular world or from ministry, and that normally does happen. So you know that to get more money for you, you need to go and finish your degree or get your degree. And then the reward. The reward will satisfy whatever that need is. Now, it could be intrinsic. It could be the sense of accomplishment internally. That's what is intrinsic. It may be that sense of well-being and self-efficacy that we're going to look at here a little bit later on. Or it could be that extrinsic reward. Forget the feelings, pay me. I want now a better job and more money. I'll feel good when I'm in a better position than where I was. So you have the need, you have the behaviors that you believe will satisfy that need, and then you have the results, which will be the outcome of those behaviors, and they will either satisfy your intrinsic or your extrinsic needs. So this is the very beginning of it, and then what you see here at the bottom and circling back to the beginning is what we call feedback. The reward informs the person whether the behavior was appropriate and should be used again. Let's say, for instance, that you've gone to college and you have done what you've wanted to do or needed to do academically to make more money, and then you go out and you get a $140,000 job. Well, the reward was worth it,
But now, if you go out into the world and you're only making maybe 10,000 more than you were making without a degree, you may reevaluate whether it was worth it or not. And your idea or your desire, maybe to go back and get more education, may not be that strong anymore. If this is the payoff, it's not worth it. So, we're going to talk a little bit more about the behaviors and the rewards as opposed to the need. But really, when it comes to motivation, we're going to look at what we want, what it's going to take to get it, and whether or not the reward is going to be enough for us to engage in the behaviors in the first place. So, this ties into other theories that, again, we will talk about here as we move on. But this is the basic model of motivation, and you can use it for any situation. You can use it in ministry, you can use it in business, you can even use it in relationships. You may think about uh, getting a house. You may think about it in terms of getting married. What do you need? I need a relationship or I need friendship. What's it going to take? Well, I'm going to have to be more open. I'm going to have to come out of my shell. And the rewards. I'll have a relationship or friendships or so forth, or I'll have that house if I save my money and so forth. If the reward meets or exceeds the need, then chances are you're going to engage in that behavior. But all of that will come as you get the reward and you evaluate it through feedback. Now, intrinsic and extrinsic rewards, these are two important concepts to understand because they explain a lot of why people behave the way they do. Now, don't think that people are going to be motivated by the same things. There are people who are driven by just an internal desire to do well. And then there are those who are dependent upon external rewards to give them that satisfaction or fulfill those needs that they may have. Now, an intrinsic reward is one that satisfies an internal desire or need. It's the internal satisfactions a person receives in the process of performing a particular action. You do the job because the job is there and you're going to do your best no matter what is asked of you. These are people who don't need a lot of rewards, tangible rewards. The job and the accomplishment is reward itself. Now, think about a person. In fact, I have seen this and I've experienced it myself, where you do something just because you enjoy doing it or like doing it. I used to do a lot of woodwork back when I was younger and I had the time to do it. I love doing woodwork. Now, in time, I got pretty good at it. And people started noticing my work. And then they wanted to start paying me for it. And after a while, it became a job. Uh, what was intrinsic for me became an extrinsic burden because people paying me for what I was doing, it placed a different type of perspective on woodwork. It was no longer something that I did for pleasure. It became a job. And eventually, I stopped doing it altogether. And that's sad because I really love doing woodwork. But think about rewarding people for things that they're going to do, just whether or not they're rewarded or not. You adding to it by externally rewarding them may be counterproductive for people who are offended by that. The Japanese culture, for instance, they don't look at getting rewards for what they do. To them, doing the job is an honor. They support the organization. And when the organization as a whole succeeds, that's what they draw satisfaction from.
In fact, in Japanese culture, if you rewarded them personally for jobs well done, they would become offended. So, intrinsic rewards are those rewards that are doled out based on the person's performance uh, uh, that are internal, and a pat on the back. Hey, you did a real good job. Can do a whole lot more for these people than giving them an employee of the month or a pay raise or whatever. Not that they would probably deny the raise, but intrinsic individuals are people who will do the job just for the job's sake. Now, extrinsic rewards is quite opposite. These are rewards given by another person, typically a supervisor, such as pay increases and promotions. These are people who are driven by tangible rewards. It could be in the form of a paycheck, it could be in the form of a plaque or a certificate, employee of the month parking, and so forth. So these are people who are rewarded with tangible rewards. Pay increases, again, it could be that or promotions, things that they can wrap their minds around and their hands around, and be able to be rewarded not internally but externally. So you need to understand the two different types of rewards and know your people enough to know what motivates them. Now, Exhibit 8 Tues shows us just a diagram of needs of people and motivational methods. Now, the needs of people, if you go over to the red side on the left, you'll see that under conventional management, we satisfied lower needs, and those are needs that can be satisfied with tangible or extrinsic rewards, which is money, benefits, promotions. Lower needs, as we will see here in a little bit, satisfy those physical needs that we have of being able to pay the bills and groceries and rent and mortgage and all of that. Now, we use the carrot and stick method to everybody. We dangled promotions and raises and bonuses over their heads to get them to perform. Now, these are people who believed, from a management perspective, that people were all motivated by the same thing. They really didn't encourage people to give their own input. They just believed that the worker is the worker. They're there to work. We're here to make decisions. So there was that separation of labor and management. And labor didn't care or wasn't solicited to give their input on how things should be run. Management just believed, hey, we can train them like we can animals. We can condition them to do what we want to do, and we can use a system of rewards and punishments to control their behavior. And as you see here, that's what you had. It was the end result of controlling people that they were looking for, and they were able to do it. But the downside was that they only got adequate effort. For instance, if you wanted a person to put on a chassis for a Model T, that's all they did. That's all they were told to do, and that's all they were motivated to do. So they got just what the boss asked for, nothing more, nothing less. They got the job done, but that was pretty much it. Now, today, we can't survive like that. We need employees who are versatile, flexible, motivated, to be able to do more with less. And that old conventional method has really just gone out the window because it became antiquated because of globalization, diversity, and technology. We see today that the worker is more sophisticated. They have to be to keep up with the technology and the demands of a global market. So the conventional management, it works in very, very limited environments, but for the most part, it's no longer a viable strategy. Now, leadership, they focus on higher needs, and we'll look at those higher needs here in just a few minutes. But you have here the idea of empowerment. This is an intrinsic reward where the employee is given the opportunity to take hold and take ownership of their work. You empower them to make decisions, to be able to manage themselves to a certain extent. Now, that's has been historically unheard of. In the past, we use the conventional management. No, we don't want the employee thinking. We just want them to do what we want them to do. But in today's world, we have to incorporate this concept of empowerment so that the worker can be more flexible and be more motivated to perform. And here you see more employee engagement. And that means, again, that they are offering other ways of doing the job. They're looking at more maybe efficient and effective means of doing the work. And then you have, as a result of that, in theory, their best effort. If a person feels like their higher needs are being met, which is their esteem needs and belongingness needs, and if they are empowered to make decisions, which means they feel that the company trusts them and values their input, they're going to be more engaged. And then as a result, you're going to get their best effort. So this is the really another crux of what we see as far as leadership and motivation. Now, there are four categories of motives. Again, with extrinsic and intrinsic, you go up to the quadrant 1 in the upper left. You have extrinsic positive approach, which is external, and at the bottom you see it's meant for pleasure and growth. And then the quadrant number 1, you see rewards such as pay raises, bonuses, praise. Now, folks, here's where you're going to have to be very careful. Yes, they may be happy with a raise and a bonus, but there's not an unlimited source of revenue coming in to be able to motivate them that way every single time, unless you are like FedEx or maybe some of these large corporations. But for the most part, you've got to be careful with raises and bonuses because they'll be happy. But what happens usually when you get a raise? You take on more expense, and then you have a zero-sum gain at that point. So the only other way to motivate them is for the next raise to come along. So they work from pay raise to pay raise or bonuses to bonuses. But you can also praise them. And in your praise, be able to tell them how well they're doing and appeal to their sense of belonging and pride and workmanship. Now, quadrant 2 is intrinsic, and it also focuses on pleasure and growth. And here the people enjoy their work and get a sense of accomplishment. So here we are praising them, we are empowering them, we are encouraging them, and we help them to enjoy their work. I've asked my students in the classes that I've taught, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a high-paying job where the environment was horrible and management was abusive, or would you rather take a pay cut and work in an environment that supported you, that was encouraging you and bringing out the best in you? And surprisingly, a lot of them would take the lower pay just to work in a very good environment. And folks, when you've been out in the world and you've seen people who fall into that first category, you see that they're miserable. Money may be good, but they hate going to work. Many of them have high absentees and sick days and all of that because of it. So there's much to be said about the intrinsic approach. And then you have quadrant 3, which is the extrinsic negative approach. And this is the conduct of threats and punishment, where you threaten the employees or threaten to punish them and so forth. And you make examples of people. And again, that's not the best way. It's extrinsic, and you're dealing off of pain and fear. And then intrinsic, in quadrant 4, intrinsic negative approach is to tap into self-doubts and anxieties, which means that you have people who are just not able because of their lack of esteem, lack of confidence, who will not be able to do the job, especially at that particular level. Now, today we're going to look at the first theory here, which is the hierarchy of needs theory. This is an important theory. It's an old theory, relatively old when it comes to leadership. It's one of the first theories that came around when we started to really look at leadership. So let's take a look at the hierarchy of needs theory. A guy named Abraham Maslow proposed that humans are motivated by multiple needs, and those needs exist in a hierarchical order. Now, what are we talking about here? Well, as you see here, there is a diagram, and at the very bottom, you see physiological needs. Now, normally, I really don't like this model. The traditional model has a pyramid, and at the bottom of the pyramid, you see the physiological needs. And these are the basic needs to survive: heat, air, and in a work sense, base salary. You've got to eat, you've got to be able to live and clothe yourself and all of that. Now, you can't worry about anything else if you are not meeting your basic physiological lower needs. But once all of those are satisfied, and Maslow believed you had to satisfy all of them, then you can move on to safety needs. And this is a safe work environment, fringe benefits, job security. So that would be second on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then once your base needs are met, you're being able to have enough money to survive on, and you're doing fairly well, and you're living in a home or an apartment, and you're clothing, and you can buy groceries, and then you have the need of job security being met with benefits and a safe work environment, then you can start moving from the lower needs to the higher needs, which are the belongingness needs. And this is from the business standpoint and ministry, work groups, clients, co-workers, supervisors. These are the things that you need to be able to do your job. And that's the relatedness needs, belonging to these people, getting along, being appreciated, and you appreciating them. And then once that need is met, you move on to esteem needs, which is recognition, approval, higher status, increased responsibility. These are feeding the ego, that self-appreciation, self-efficacy. These are the things that you are building off of when it comes to esteem needs. And then once that need is met, or those needs are met, then you move on to self-actualization. And that's the highest order of needs. And here, from, again, a organizational standpoint, you have opportunities for advancement, autonomy, growth, creativity. These are the things that once all the other needs are met, you have now the freedom to create, to innovate, to think, to be able to branch out and have autonomy, which is really the pinnacle of an organizational need. Now, again, I really don't like the circles. I like the pyramid because your physiological needs are going to be more in volume than you will the self-actualization needs. And as you go up a pyramid, these needs become higher, but they become less numerous as far as each category needing many, many things. So take it for what it's worth. I mean, this exhibit is okay, but if you don't have, and Maslow being a stage theorist, you have to progress through each stage sequentially. Each stage has to be fully realized or satisfied before you can move on to the next. You can't skip. And if you go back, you have to go back to the next previous stage that you had fulfilled before you can move back up again. So It's fairly rigid, but there are values to this hierarchy. For instance, if you're not paying a person enough to be able to survive, it doesn't make a difference how good an environment you've got. They're not going to be able to stay because we're not taking care of them. If they don't feel like they're being appreciated, if they feel like they are uh, just a number or just a body to fill a position, chances are, even though they stay, they're not going to be very productive.
And as you can see, motivation plays an important part in the productivity of not only an employee, but the organization as a whole. Now, we took a look at one of the fundamental theories of motivation, which is the hierarchy of needs. Now, we're going to be looking at some other just as important theories as we move along. So make sure you keep up with your reading and these concepts because they will reap many, many dividends for you if you apply these theories correctly and appropriately in business or in your ministry. Take care, have a good day, and we'll resume tomorrow.